Hi, Sophie.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, doing well. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Regan.
Hey, thanks to you both for joining me today for this episode of the Unbothered edition of Speaking Of. So today we're speaking of cooking from home. And I don't know about you guys, but cooking from home is sometimes so hard for me.
For sure.
Yeah, I would agree. It can be difficult.
Well, being in college, obviously, cooking is something new because when you're back at home, you don't cook. So it's something very fun and exciting. And I feel like all my friends find joy and they love to take pictures and be like, look what I made today. Or I tried this TikTok recipe and it was super yummy. So I feel like it's just fun to try new recipes and make new things because it's a new part of life that we're getting to experience, even though it's something so small. Everyone does have to learn to cook eventually. So
Yeah.
Do you put them on Instagram?
no, but I put them on Snapchat.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. And you said you made a braised.
I made braised short rib.
Wow.
Yeah.
What even is that? Tell me about that.
So, it's short rib, and you cook it in a Dutch oven with wine and beef stock with carrots, celery, different spices, and then you put it in the oven. Well, basically you'll sear the short rib first, so it's nice and crispy, and then you'll make the whole sauce, and then put the short rib back in, and then you cook it in the oven for 3-4 hours. So all those flavors really come together, and it's so delicious. But my mom makes it at home, and that's where I got the idea to make it.
I'm impressed and ashamed at the same time.
I know, right? When's the last time you made a braised short rib? I don't think I've ever made one. No. So, Sophia, but you said one of the problems you ran into with that was that you didn't have all the equipment you needed.
Yeah. So in order to make a braised short rib, you need the Dutch oven, that the pot that goes into the oven, and those are pretty pricey. I don't have one at school, but yeah, I didn't have all the supplies I needed to make it, so it was challenging at first, for sure.
And would you say that's one of your biggest problems when it comes to cooking at home?
I would say for sure that's a big problem. Being at home, I have everything, even just a little processor to blend the garlic or the onion, or just my can opener doesn't even work. So I have to stab it with the thing. I have to punch the holes in it to just get a can open to make the easiest things. Let's say, I don't know, what do I use it? For the Super Bowl, I love to bring dips to my boyfriend's apartment, and with all those dips you need cans, cans of Rotel, or for spinach artichoke dip, you need the artichoke heart. So I was always struggle with the can opener.
Yeah. Paul, do you have a Dutch oven?
I don't, but, I'm in Scouts and we have, I think, stacks and stacks of Dutch ovens there. But so the only experience I have with that is on campouts, right, using charcoal. The closest thing I might have would be a pressure cooker, and I've made a couple meals in the pressure cooker a couple times.
So, Paul, you are a single father.
Yes.
And so I feel like you have a whole different set of kitchen concerns than
sure.
maybe Sophia would have as a college student. Mm-hmm. What are some of the big challenges that you face when it comes to cooking at home?
Time is one, right? So schedule. So my daughter and I, we're in Scouting. And so if we've got an evening meeting, there is no time that night for doing cooking. And maybe that's where a crock pot might be useful. But there's a convenience of fast food on nights like that.
Yes.
To just, while we're running around town, to go and grab food. But to me, time is the biggest issue because of schedules and running around from work and school and all of this stuff. And then the second one is sometimes I just feel overwhelmed because I'm trying to make things that I know that she would want to eat. And then just having the energy and the mental capacity to kind of come up with something new. I'm trying to make sure she's eating nutritious things. Again, I feel like guilt is all part of this.
Yes,
I want to make
sure
sure she's eating healthy vegetables, but I'll go and buy vegetables with the intent of cooking them. Then they go bad before I ever get around to, preparing them and making them. So I've learned to freeze lots of things, freezing meats, frozen vegetables. And that's kind of been my solution.
To get some tips on making cooking from home feel a little less insurmountable, I turned to a professional. Nikki Patenio teaches private cooking lessons, streams lessons online, and has a line of professional level spices for home cooks.
I just am really passionate about, the shroud of mystery that's sometimes put over cooking at home. I've noticed there's a lot of YouTube chefs, quote unquote, and they're oh, you got to have a gram of this, and get out your scale, and they turn it into this big science project where I do my baking. My baking, I make breads and cakes and everything. All of my measurements are by U.S. cups. It's for the home cook. I use teaspoons, tablespoons. It's not a big deal. It's good. You're gonna have cake. I'm gonna show you all the little tricks that we use as professional chefs to make food that's yummy. So I'm just really passionate about removing that veil of mystery and showing people that cooking like a pro is accessible to everyone. There's just a little bit I got to teach you, and we'll get you up and running.
So I want to talk a little bit about your background. Mm-hmm. You started, I believe, as a private chef, right?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your origin story.
Okay. So my origin story, I'm originally from Fort Lauderdale, and I went to culinary school at Johnson & Wales in 2004 in Miami. And right after school, I was in the right place at the right time, and I met some dolphin players, and I ended up becoming a private chef for a couple of them, and it was fantastic. I did it for 5 seasons, and it was, I did pregame meals and weird nutritional plans that, they were on these very eccentric nutritional plans. So, I would cook those plans. They would be on these interesting ingredients and sometimes very limited ingredients, and my job would be to make it taste good. So I did that. I had a catering company as well, and that was around 2008. I had a restaurant. And then from there, I was bootstrapping it, so I ended up getting into a lot of financial debt. And one of the best things that I did after that was I was at the dentist office, and the receptionist was like, "Have you ever heard of day work for chefs?" And I was like, "No." So I went on this website and I uploaded my CV, and I got a call while I was in the mall eating an ice cream cone from a guy with a New Zealand accent, and he said, "Can you come to this boatyard and work for a couple days so I can take a couple days off?" He was the chef. He was the head chef. And so I did. I went to that boatyard. I was in all black, which is not typical of how yachties dress. I just crawled out of the I just crawl out of the kitchen, as this person that just is afraid of the sun. And everybody's there in their white t-shirts and khakis and Oakley glasses, and they're all Australians and 6-foot blondes, and I'm this little person that just crawled out of this kitchen. So I did. I worked on that boat. I did the day work, which is you're just kind of filling in. I cooked for the crew. They had 17 crew, and they ended up liking what I did. And a couple of months later, they flew me to Spain, and I worked on that boat for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And it's a great career. I tell a lot of people that are coming out of culinary school, or they're finding themselves in what's next kind of thing. Working on land, you can make pretty good money, but working on a boat, you make an insane amount of money, and you can see the world. I did summers in the Mediterranean, winters in the Caribbean, and it was just a wild time.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah. And so then fast forward, sort of the way that I know about you is from your pandemic series that you did on trying to help people with cooking at home, which is sort of what we're talking about today. And I know now you offer some classes in different places around town, and you said you're bringing that series back.
Yes.
I was looking at your Instagram, and I think, and I saw that you're having a knife skills lesson coming up soon. Tell me about that.
I'm teaching a knife. So I started teaching live stream cooking lessons, and the one coming up is knife skills. And I teach it just like I would teach in culinary school. I taught culinary school for 7 years. I've been teaching culinary for about 12 years in total. And, I'm going to show you how to sharpen your knives, maintain your knives, what to look for when you're purchasing kitchen knives, because, a lot of people buy a block, and those are great. But my opinion is to buy knives you're going to use, because what we end up doing is using the chef knife. And then when that gets dull, we use the next knife. And then we just go through the whole block until they're all dull. So, in my opinion, you don't need an expensive block of knives. You need the knives you're going to use. So if you fillet fish, you need a fillet knife, But if you're just chopping vegetables and, you just need a really good chef knife that's going to stay pretty sharp. And I'm going to show you how to keep it sharp and how to maintain it. And then we're going to cut some vegetables and I'll help with the confidence of cutting, different everyday foods, because that's what people really, I get the most requests for that is knife skills.
Yeah. So as a kid, I used to watch my grandmother make her famous German potato salad for every holiday. And that involves a lot of chopping. Like you're chopping the potatoes, you're chopping the eggs, you're chopping the onion, you're chopping the celery. There's lots of stuff in there. And one of the things that she does that I love and I do now, and I guess I'm curious from a professional, what do we think about this? She sits at a table to chop.
Oh.
And I think for me, like I get home from a long day of work, I'm tired. I want to relax. So last night, the recipe that I wanted to make, I had to thinly slice like a pound of baby potatoes. Like that seems like it's going to take forever. They said use a mandolin, but like I'm scared.
Oh.
So I thinly sliced my baby potatoes while sitting on the couch in my living room, watching TV, and using the coffee table.
Yeah.
Good or bad?
I think it's fine. The goal is to eat yummy potato salad. So, however, Gordon Ramsay's not coming over and be like, stand up, it's not going to happen. And so, however you're comfortable in the time frame that you want to get the potato salad done, I say go for it. If you're sitting on your couch and you need to be comfortable, I say go for it. But I will say one little tip about the mandolin is that there is a glove that you can buy. They're like a couple of bucks. It's called a cut glove. And you can put it on your hand that you're using the mandolin with. Like, so if you're right-handed, it'd probably be your right hand. You can get two gloves if you want. But this way, it will give you confidence that you don't cut yourself, and you could go ahead and get that potato salad done way quicker.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Is that, okay, I have a glove that I use when I'm shucking oysters.
That's the guy.
Same thing?
Yeah, that's the guy.
Oh,
Yeah.
See, okay. I'm going to get that mandolin. It's up in one of those places where you keep the kitchen tools that you never use because I'm scared of it. But now that I know I already have the gloves, I'm getting it down.
Bring it down, put it in pride of place.
Yeah. So that brings me perfectly into my next question, which is what are the ways that we can get that past that barrier of not having a fully stocked like mom kitchen in our home?
So a few like tools. I mean, when I stay at Airbnbs, I bring my cast iron skillet. And in fact, I lost mine a couple of Airbnbs ago, so I had to re-season a new one, and I was really upset. And I was like, well, the next people that stay here are going to get a real fine piece of cooking equipment, But so that's one of the things that I bring with me because I know I can basically cook anything in a cast iron skillet. And it's not an expensive, they're like, I don't know, at this point, I think maybe $30, but don't quote me on that. I mean, it's pretty reasonably priced. So a cast iron skillet for sure. Couple of rubber spatulas that we call them rubber spatulas still, but they're made out of silicone. And, don't get them from the dollar store. Get one or two good ones that are heat resistant up to 400 degrees, the spatula part. A good whisk, couple of, mixing bowls. You don't need a ton of equipment. You can get the job done with just a few things, I think.
Say you're making quinoa, some broccoli, and some chicken. Good, healthy nutrition, but kind of boring.
Yeah.
So how do we elevate maybe these quick, simple meals that don't require a lot of ingredients?
Sauce. So a good healthy sauce that I keep in my fridge is romesco sauce. And it's just a jar of roasted red peppers with whatever nut pureed. So like you could use almonds, you can use hazelnuts, and you just puree it. A little bit of oil. You can add some mustard to it and some pro seasoning to it as well. And then it works as a salad dressing. You can put it on that chicken with your broccoli. But then, I say sauce brings people to the table.
Nice. Okay. And I think that slides into one thing. I was talking to a person here, Paul Dam. He's a single dad. He's got a kid at home. And I think he's feeling maybe that squeeze to get dinner on the table even more than all the rest of us. Because it's not just him being like, I'm hungry, I want to eat right now. He's got a kid like literally saying that to him, standing right next to him. So a lot of times we all turn to our friends, the drive-thru. If we don't want to do that, if we're trying to like cook fast, right? Get a meal out. It's nutritious, it's fast, and it, maybe tastes good. How can we like speed up.
Speed it up. Okay, I have this amazing hack. I
Yes.
love this hack. So I years ago bought a magnetic calendar for my fridge, and it has Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, days of the week, and it has a big space. And I bought these little dry erase paint pens, and I go, okay, Monday, maybe the kids have practice. So you're like, we don't need dinner that night. We're gonna whatever. Tuesday we're having chicken, rice, romesco sauce, broccoli, and then from the leftover rice, Wednesday we're having chicken fried rice or pork fried rice, or so you make extra rice on Tuesday. Wednesday you have like a fried rice. You can substitute cauliflower rice, whatever, if you want to keep it low carb. Like that's what I do. And then you put the days of the week, and you can work in leftovers to reuse them throughout the week, and it goes on the fridge, and it takes everybody's schedule into account. Also, if anybody has any issue with what's on the, speak now or forever hold your peace, because that calendar's been up since Sunday. So if you're on Wednesday, you go, I don't want that for dinner. Sorry, it's been on the calendar for 3 days. That was your time. If you had any objections, you talk about it then. But yeah, it's a great time saver. Number one, it saves time because you already know what you're gonna have for dinner. Number two, it saves you on groceries, because then you only buy the stuff you need. So you're not like haphazardly buying cauliflower, chicken, whatever. You're like, okay, well, I need to make this plus lunches and breakfast. I need 3 pounds of chicken or whatever, and then that way you're saving money at the grocery store, because we know rising grocery costs. We want to save some money.
Yeah.
So that little calendar definitely works to save on your budget, save on time, because you're at work. You're like, okay, what am I making? Okay, I'm making chicken fried rice. So I know that's only going to take me 15 minutes to make, so I'm good. And maybe that's the meal you have when somebody has football practice. You got to take them to. I can knock that out in 15 minutes. So that's a great tool.
Yeah. I think it addresses the problem, too, that I specifically have, which is that the person that I am when I'm shopping at the grocery store on like a Sunday, when I've looked at all my fun recipes and I think I'm going to have so much energy that week. And then the person that I am at the end of the day when it's time to cook the food are two different people.
Yes.
We are not in the same mind space at all. And so I have a huge problem at my house with food waste. And so it sounds like your answer to that is planning.
A little planning. And it doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't have to do containers. And, I see all these people with food prepping and they're like, okay, I got all these containers. Like, you don't need to do that. Just do a dry erase calendar and you plan out ahead of time. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't have to have food containers everywhere and that sort of thing. So, yeah, it can be an easy process.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it makes food planning or meal planning a little less overwhelming, because then you don't have to have this large amount of ingredients at home. You just have what you need.
So that brings me perfectly into my next question, which is another question that somebody asked me to ask you.
Oh.
Which is, what do we do about concerns about sort of like chemicals or the dangers that our cookware it could expose us to, right?
Oh my God, I love this question.
We're all trying to maybe stop using the nonstick pans or use them maybe sparingly. But what is okay? Like the person I talked to has ceramic pans. Is that okay? Or does he need to switch to using steel? And that sounds scary. How does he do that?
Okay. So this is a great question. To kind of summarize the safety part of it, when you purchase a pan or a knife or a spatula or any kind of cooking equipment, make sure that it says NSF on it. It's stamped with NSF, and that's the National Sanitation Foundation. And I think it's called that, NSF. What that does is it's a third party. So I'm Mr. Aluminum Pan Manufacturer. I send my pan to NSF and I go test my pan. And what NSF will do is put that pan through normal wear and tear. They'll test that the rivets aren't coming off the handle. They'll test that there's not chemicals, coming off of the pan, with normal temperature. I mean, if it's a 500 degrees, I mean, it might, any pan's going to start breaking down.
Sure.
But, normal temperatures, they'll test it, put it through all that testing, and then if it passes, they'll stamp it with NSF, and then you buy it with that stamp
literally stamped on the pan,
on the
or
bottom.
I'm
usually,
looking at the tag, or like.
So a knife would probably it may be stamped on there, but it would probably be on the packaging. So a large percentage of the time it's on the packaging, but on pots and pans it's usually stamped right on the bottom, NSF.
Wow.
And so, but the other part of that question is there's new science coming out with Teflon, ceramic, any kind of coating on pans breaking down, and whether or not that is harmful for you. So that part of it, I would say follow closely, see what the state and federal guidelines are for what what the toxic limit is and all that kind of stuff. But a good best practice is to look for the NSF. And see that your equipment is stamped with that.
Yeah. And if you want to avoid that, then I feel like the materials that are like A-okay, we know this, are cast iron, and then like those steel pans. Is steel the right word? Like
Stainless
the
steel?
all-clad pans, I think, is an example. But people think those are scary. Maybe they're harder to use. What if I want to start trying to use those?
So if you want to start trying to use those, definitely check out my classes. You can go to chefnikki.net. That's Nikki with 2 Ks. And I teach these virtual classes. They're group classes. I also teach classes at Brown's Kitchen and at the Prepared Table. So those are great resources if you want to be taught, right away. But there's lots of videos on how to preheat your pans. And, when I teach people how to cook proteins, for instance, like everybody freaks out about cooking fish on stainless steel. I think that's everybody's major nightmare, right? So one of the first things you do with with any kind of protein, with any kind of cooking surface, is dry it. Right? So when I am prepping my fish, for instance, even if it's frozen fish, and it's already defrosted, I will take 2 pieces of paper towel and I'll squeeze that fish in between make little praying hands and squeeze that fish and make sure it's as dry as you can get it. Don't mangle it, but, just press out the moisture. Pressing out that moisture will do 2 things. It will prevent it from sticking to the pan. And then the second thing is, because if you have moisture on the outside of the fish, as soon as it hits a hot surface, that moisture is going to turn to steam, and you will have what we call gray meat, right? Like for instance, a steak. If you don't dry off a steak, you will have, you basically steam the steak instead of getting that Maillard reaction, which is that golden, caramelization.
Yeah.
So, just drying the protein off first is the first step with cooking. If you're going to use a dry cooking process like searing on a skillet, whether it's cast iron, whether it's stainless steel, ceramic, doesn't matter. Dry your proteins. Then we season. We put in some sort of cooking fat, whether that's a really good high heat cooking fat. That I'm using right now is avocado oil. I love avocado oil because I can make I can get it really, really hot, and when I add that seasoned with pro seasoning fish to the pan, it's going to make the sound that we all want, right?
Yes.
And it will not stick. Those are just the small things you can do. So drying the protein, preheating the pan, use a high cooking heat oil. Because if you use extra virgin oil, it's a lower smoke point. So it's going to start smoking at a lower temperature. Therefore, you're cooking at a lower temperature, and the fish could stick to the pan. So
I think that is how I recently caught a steak on fire in my
Smoke
house.
point?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I had that cast iron pan cranked up because I wanted it to be real hot for the steak, but I was using olive oil.
There it is. Yeah. And so it really taking a look at the smoke point when you're purchasing, it'll say it right on the bottle too. So like the avocado oil, it'll say up to 450 degrees. Extra virgin olive oil, it'll say, maybe like 375. It'll start. And so what smoke point is the point in which oil begins to break down and smoke. The next thing after smoke point is flash point. That's fire. So that's maybe what happened. It broke down, and then you hit flash point. But that's, it's an easy fix. You just use a higher heat cooking oil, and you'll have a nice, beautiful Maillard reaction, caramelized steak that is you'll love.
Maillard reaction. That's a new phrase for me. I'm going to use it all the time now.
Yes.
So I sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Definitely, it's going to be a Jeopardy word at some point. But
Yes.
the Maillard reaction, named after old man Maillard. No, it's a French scientist, and he discovered the caramelization of sugars in the presence of protein, and that's what gives food its beautiful. That's the crust on your bread, right? Is different than the interior. Right, it's golden. It's got that golden brown color. The inside is usually, if it's a white bread, the inside is going to be white. And so the Maillard reaction is you can see it, you can smell it, you can taste it.
Ooh, yeah. So, okay, I have a question. My dad used to say when we talked about cooking, he had this. It's a little phrase that he would say, and it kind of has like a rhyme. It doesn't rhyme. It has a pattern. He says, "Hot pan, cold oil, food doesn't stick." Is that a thing?
Hot pan, cold oil, food doesn't stick. That's the first time I heard it, but that's you heat your pan first, and then you add your oil, and then So if you heat your oil in your pan, cold pan and oil, and then you turn it on, the food might stick. Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
So we're doing it.
Yeah.
Hot pan, cold oil, food doesn't stick.
Yeah, that's great.
Dan McCarthy, you are right. Nikki says so.
Yeah. You're validated.
All
Hereby. Stamp.
I love it. Well, Nikki, thanks so much for joining me today. I am so inspired. I want to go get in my kitchen. I think I've got a lot of solutions now for these barriers to cooking from home.
Awesome.
I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.